Hello everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to my first ever wrap-up video. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in October, and it's a really good list. Not the longest that I've ever had, but a really good list, and I'm so excited to share them today. So what better way than to jump right on into it? So let's get started. The first book that I read this month was none other than The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. This book has been everywhere, and for good reasons. It's such a cute, small-town witchy story, so it fit all of my needs for like a early October read, because we've got Gravesglen, which is this small town where there's this witchy presence and a school of magic at the local university, but like the regular non-witchy people don't really know about it. Really dig that. A lot of people might already know what this book is about, but just in case, it follows Vivian and Reese, who had dated when they were about 19 or so, and they have a big falling out over something that happens, and so Vivian, as she is mourning the loss of this relationship, jokingly curses Reese with her cousin Gwen, and then there's a big jump in time. I think it's about 10 years later, and Reese is coming back to Gravesglen for a big like anniversary of the founding of the town, and so then pieces of the curse start to fall into place, and then they're trying to solve it together, also trying to get used to each other again after their big falling out the last time they had seen each other. Like I said, there's great small town vibes, there's a talking black cat, there is hijinks and mischief and magic, and it's so fun. Plot-wise, it's not super stellar though. Like, there's quite a few plot holes that you really have to just be able to overlook with this one, so if you're looking for something that's literarily well crafted, this might not be for you, but if you can look over that, it's just a fun, cute Halloween romp. So I know we're kind of phasing out of the spooky season, but if you're still looking for something silly, then this is The Ex-Hex. I think I gave this one about 3 stars just because of the plot holes, but there it is. The next book that I read in October was Finley Donovan is Killing It. So I talked about this book in my fall TBR video. I can have that link down below, but it was the very first video that I posted, and it's before I upgraded my camera equipment, so the visuals are a little rough. That being said, the premise of this one is that Finley Donovan is a struggling romantic suspense writer, and she is talking with her editor at a Panera about how she has no idea how to write the murder for her next book. She's like, usually I like get in there, get it done, get out, and the way that she's describing these murders that she writes makes the woman at the table next to her think that she is like actually like a hitman murderer. And so she gets this note from this lady basically offering her $50,000 to commit this hit job on, I believe it's her husband. And Finley Donovan is so strapped for cash because of her recent divorce and everything like that, that she actually agrees to do the job. There's mafia, there's craziness, there's so many bad decisions. I think I gave this one like 2 or 3 stars. I really wanted to love it, and there were some parts that were really entertaining, but overall, the best word to describe this book is stressful. She makes so many poor choices, and the entire time you're just like, Finley, get it together. Like, get it together, girl. It's not necessarily a great mystery that you're trying to solve. It just feels stressful. So maybe that's for you. Personally, didn't love it, but so glad I read it. I don't know that I'll be continuing the series, but in any case, there is Finley Donovan is Killing It by El Cosimano. So I moved away from the mystery Halloween-y genre next. I actually finally picked up Shadow and Bone. This is the first book in the Grishaverse trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. So there's the trilogy where you have Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Ruin and Rising, and then that preludes the duology Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and then I know there's also a couple extra novels after that, and one about a certain character, and there's a graphic novel, so it's a very big universe, but I finally decided to dive in. I really liked this one. I think I gave it 4 stars. It's more of a slow starter, and I know that this was Leigh Bardugo's like absolute debut novel, and I think the writing style might reflect that a little bit, but it's still really well done. I love the world building in this and the universe that she creates. I think the biggest thing that this book struggles with is pacing. So at some points the plot is like completely moving you forward and you're just waiting to see what happens, and then at other times it's like, okay, we get it. She's still in training. Again, she doesn't know how to fight. Still. And so it is a bit of a struggle bus at times, just trying to get through those slower parts of the book. But at the same time, overall, this was a really gratifying read. I love the world building so much. I like a lot of the characters. I think the whole system of Grisha powers is interesting. So this was a great intro into that universe, and it definitely made me a fan of the series. So that is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I love the cover on this one too. Now, here is where we start to get a little out of order. I read a couple books in between, but since I just talked about Shadow and Bone, might as well talk about Siege and Storm. I also read this one this month. I was excited to dive into it after how much I love the ending of Shadow and Bone. Because again, like I said, with pacing in the first one, it was kind of slow at parts, but then once you get to the last, like, third or fourth of the book, it picks up so much, and so I was really wanting to see what happened. So this one picks up maybe just a couple of months after Shadow and Bone leaves off. We're following the same set of characters, but on a slightly different adventure. The best thing that I loved about this one was the addition of the character Nikolai, the prince. He added so much humor and color to this book, because sometimes with fantasy and when there's a lot of hardship, it seems like characters are all just like kind of sad and down and stressed like the entire time. And so Nikolai added some much needed levity to this story, and I loved seeing how the relationship developed between him and Alina. Otherwise, I didn't love this one as much as Shadow and Bone. Like, if you actually try to break down the plot of what this one's about, it seems like there's a ton that happens in the beginning, absolutely nothing that happens for like 300 pages, and then just chaos for the last part of the book. It also was a lot more sad than Shadow and Bone and left me in a much more hopeless place than the ending of Shadow and Bone did, so I was a little bit sad after reading this one. Kind of gave me like end of the Harry Potter series vibes, where there's a lot of build-up and then just a lot of really hard stuff going on. So for those reasons, I found myself not liking Siege and Storm as much. Actually, to the point where I was considering not reading Ruin and Rising and just jumping straight into the Six of Crows duology, but then I talked to a friend who said that Ruin and Rising is actually a really cool book and the ending was really well done, and so I feel like I still need to read Ruin and Rising before I jump into the Six of Crows duology. But there you have it. This is Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. Alright, so jumping into the actual order of books that I read, this is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. I loved this book. It is really short. I don't think it's even quite, it's only like 200 and some pages, and the font is quite large. But this follows a story of A.J. Fikry, who is only in his 30s, but a very curmudgeonly bookseller, who, after the death of his wife, has really cut himself off from the world, doesn't find joy in very much at all. But then a baby is left at his store, and he decides to keep the child and raise her, and so it follows the story of them growing up and him learning to be a father. There is also a romance plot, and it's such a heartwarming tale about how this man and the child and the different people around him all learn to bond with each other and also bond with reading itself. There is so much in here for a person who loves books. So if you're someone that loves a good story about books bringing people together and people getting kind of like a new start in life, and you just want something that warms you from the inside out, then I wholeheartedly recommend The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. Such a good book. Alright, so the next one I also loved. A.J. Fikry was a 5-star read, and this one was too. This is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Again, this is a book that's been everywhere lately, but honestly for good reason, alright? It is kind of like Westing Games, Knives Out-esque, in the sense that there is an obscenely wealthy man that has a big fortune to leave behind. Instead of leaving this money for his direct relatives, he ends up giving it all to a teenager named Avery Grams, who is someone with absolutely no money. She's living with her sister. She ends up sleeping in her car at one point. And then suddenly she is the main heir to a multi-billionaire. It's insane. So she's flown to the Hawthorne mansion, and all of the family members are trying to suss out why all this is happening. And the descriptions of the mansion itself are so cool. Like, you feel like you're really there. It's like this giant labyrinth of all these rooms that you are exploring right along with Avery, and there's a series of puzzles that Avery and a couple of the grandsons are all trying to figure out, because they're all really trying to figure out why Avery was chosen in the first place and what this means for the rest of the family. And I don't honestly think I can give this book justice, but if you like puzzles, if you like crazy mansions with a lot of awesome atmospheric descriptions, this is such a good book. I loved it so much, and I'm really, really excited to keep reading into the series. So that is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Alright, so this is the last one that I finished for October. I did a whole reading vlog on this book the week that it came out, and so I will have that linked down below if you would really like to hear my thoughts on it. It's a spoiler-free reading vlog until the spoilery rant at about 13 minutes in. Because, boy, I did not like this one. Wow, I did not like this book. So juvenile, such cringy writing. I've had some Colleen Hoover books that I liked in the past, and this was not it. This was not it. I honestly don't want to give this one any more screen time, but if you want to hear my full thoughts on it, you can go ahead and watch my other video. But, yikes. Honestly, it sent me into a bit of a reading slump too, because I didn't actually finish another book for the rest of October, even though this came out like October 17th, which is really sad. But I'll go ahead and mention the book that I'm currently reading to finish off this video, and that is In the Company of Witches by Aurelie Wallace. Again, I talked about this book in my TBR video, but basically there is a murder that happens at this Airbnb, and it's run by 3 witches, 2 aunts and then their niece. And the niece is a witch that can talk to the dead, but rather than talk to the ghost of the person that was murdered, she is unable or unwilling to use her power after something happened to her husband. Whoa, it got bright outside. Let's just... So, like any cozy mystery, you're trying to figure out who done it, but then there's also this witchy edge to it, and then you're also trying to figure out why this witch is no longer willing to use her powers. So there's a few layers going on here, and I'm not super far. I'm only about 58 pages in, but it's zany, it's cute. I love the way that it handles magic and spells and the whole deal, and so I'm really excited to keep reading this, and I think it's the perfect one to round out the spooky reading month. So that is In the Company of Witches by Aurelie Wallace. Alright, I think that's it for today's video. Like I said, I'll leave the other videos that I mentioned linked down below, but let me know what your favorite read was from this month. I'm really excited to see, and if you've read any of these, definitely also let me know your thoughts. But until next time, I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye!